As if late-night comedians needed another reason to make fun of Spirit Airlines, the discount pioneer filed for bankruptcy in November.
You're trying to tell me they weren't in bankruptcy this entire time?
The number of passengers boarding U.S. airlines hit an all-time high in 2024. U.S. airline giants like Delta and United saw their stock prices soar last year, but Spirit Airlines was down 90% before it filed for bankruptcy.
Spirit has had one challenge after another coming out of the pandemic.
The airline industry has been dealing with supply chain issues and rising fuel and labor costs. In addition to that, Spirit has struggled with an engine recall, grounding dozens of its jets, weaker than expected sales, and a failed acquisition with JetBlue.
Everybody's dealing with the fact that costs are 30% higher than they were in 2019. Airlines that have shown more success have greater exposure to premium and corporate, which makes sense because those are the kind of demand segments that you could pass through more of the cost easily.
The icon of budget air travel in the U.S. has not been profitable since 2019, and it lost over $2 billion since 2020. It is the first major U.S. airline to file for Chapter 11 since American Airlines 13 years ago. CNBC explores what drove the airline to bankruptcy and what's ahead for the carrier. Spirit Airlines is known for its bright yellow planes and cheap fares, a business model that helped reshape the airline industry.
Before the pandemic, Spirit was one of the more profitable U.S. airlines. They became wildly successful for a pretty simple business model. They offered a rock-bottom fare, and they charged fees for everything else.
Everything else includes bags, both checked and carried on, seat selection. It even charges for water. It started its a la carte model in 2006, spearheaded by its CEO at the time, Ben Baldanza.
Spirit Airlines was very successful in driving down fares in many markets. The larger competitors, the Uniteds of the industry, were trying to compete with them, and it sparked fare wars. And ultimately, for consumers looking for cheap flights, it was great.
Spirit is often ranked as one of the safest airlines in the U.S., but it's also been ranked one of the world's worst airlines due to customer complaints.
Guys, never fly with Spirit.
Yes, we do. All right. So everyone's going to shut up, and we're going to say this once, and we're only going to say it again because we're frustrated as hell. Yeah.
After a steady streak of profits, the company has struggled to earn money since 2019. The pandemic was devastating to all the airlines, but that was just the start of Spirit's financial woes. Passengers have since returned in record numbers, but airlines are facing shortages of new planes and higher labor costs.
The industry having costs that are 30% higher than they were in 2019, all fares have to be about 30% higher than 2019. So when you are catering to the market that's more price sensitive, it's going to be harder to pass through those costs.
Airlines like Spirit and Frontier are built on a model that depends on keeping costs low.
Coming out of the pandemic, nobody had low cost. Pilots were in short supply. You saw these enormous bonuses being handed out. New labor contracts came out. Spirit was among them. They bumped pilot pay more than 30% over a couple of years, and that was a big cost to them. Inflation, the same way that it affected consumers, it also affected airlines.
On top of that, many airlines had to shift growth plans due to the delays in aircraft deliveries. Spirit, who has an all-Airbus fleet, was affected by a Pratt and Whitney engine recall that grounded dozens of its jets.
So this has been a bigger drag for Spirit. It has by far the largest exposure to this issue.
That kind of limited its capacity. You need those planes to make revenue and get people on board and bring cash in the door.
The other thing is that they have been in this M&A umbrella for 2 years. So 2 years of, trying to figure out if Frontier or JetBlue was buying them.
In February 2022, Frontier Airlines agreed to merge with Spirit. But a few months later, JetBlue came in with a $3.6 billion all-cash offer.
In announcing this, you guys said during the extensive discussions held between Spirit and JetBlue, JetBlue itself admitted that a lawsuit from the DOJ seeking to block the merger was a 100% certainty. Let's be clear. Are you basically saying that JetBlue said to you guys, look, we know we're not going to get this thing through without having to go to court?
Yeah, that's what they told us, which is we agree with, by the way. And it kind of makes the whole thing to the point of being illusory, it gets to that greater point. And it really does call into question what the motive here is.
The executive team at Spirit told their shareholders, we think Frontier is the better option. The shareholders saw the all-cash offer, they turned down the Frontier deal, and then they went for JetBlue.
In January of 2024, a judge blocked that deal, and it ultimately fell through. Over the past decade, low-cost carriers have seen increased competition from legacy carriers like American, Delta, and United.
Spirit had become very successful, and the big airlines did not like that. They had a lot more firepower than, little Spirit Airlines, and it saw that fares were going down in some of its key markets. They don't like someone coming in and offering these double-digit fares into their markets. So what Delta did and sort of kicked off this industry trend was they offered their own sort of bare bones fares. It was called Basic Economy.
Typically, a basic economy fare is very restrictive and only includes the flight. It is non-refundable, non-changeable, passengers can't pick their seat, and board the plane later. A bare bones fare on legacy airlines still comes with non-alcoholic beverages and a snack. On Delta and JetBlue, a basic economy ticket still comes with free Wi-Fi.
What Delta realized is that the base fare was a nice hook for the ULCCs, and by the time the passenger went through the booking process and put everything together, they were now paying a fare that Delta was willing to support.
Travelers' preferences have changed coming out of the pandemic, with many consumers willing to spend on better seats or perks like lounges. Delta said its premium revenue has outpaced standard seats for several years. United said it's been sacrificing economy seats to add more Economy Plus seats, its extra legroom option. It reported a 5% rise in premium revenue and 20% rise in basic economy tickets from a year ago.
And as United upgauges, I think they're going to have more seats to dedicate to basic economy. But I look at that more as a defensive tool than a ULCC killer, but it does make life harder for ultra low-cost carriers competing in these large markets with the legacy carriers.
The pressure on ultra low-cost airlines has led to some big changes. Spirit and Frontier got rid of most ticket change fees last year and started offering pricing bundles that includes things they used to charge separately for. Also, while Spirit already offers travelers the big front seat, Frontier said it will install first-class seats to its fleet.
Frontier has also had a period of losing money, but they've had other challenges.
Frontier CEO Barry Biffle said one of the biggest gaps in the company's revenue model came from not offering first-class seats. Even Southwest Airlines, the fourth biggest carrier in the U.S., is making changes. The airline that has had open seating and one-cabin service for over 50 years is now adding extra legroom seats and ending open seating to improve revenue.
With Southwest, you're seeing a lot of just evolving with customer demand that maybe is 5 to 10 years too late, but they're making that change. Where they fly has changed, how full the planes have become has changed, and so that brings a change in customer preference of wanting this surety of an assigned seat.
As a result, airline cabins have become more segmented to offer different products for multiple price points. Many now offer more than just coach and first class. A long-haul flight could have first, business, premium economy, extra legroom, regular, and basic economy options.
Everybody's kind of recognizing that people are willing to pay up for experiences. And it's interesting where most of the changes are happening is in the middle end of the experience segment. So it's not first class seats that are getting added. It's really premium economy.
That model is so important to airlines' loyalty programs, which is really what drives their profits these days. It's had enormous growth. These credit card agreements with some of the country's biggest banks bring in billions of dollars for airlines. And if you don't offer products that customers can cash in those points for, then you're toast.
Even though Spirit has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection, that doesn't mean the airline ceases to exist. The airline will continue to operate and sell tickets for future flights. Analysts expect Spirit to come out of this process a smaller airline with fewer routes.
One thing that is likely to happen in Spirit's bankruptcy is they need to get their costs in check, and they need to do it very quickly. They've already sold a chunk of their fleet to raise cash. They are also likely to lay off more of their workforce. They've furloughed more than 300 pilots, but there is probably more shrink in the company to come.
Merger talks could also resume in 2025.
I think a combined Spirit and Frontier give them the best chance of really giving a good competition to the legacy carriers and the low-cost carriers, because you get a ubiquitous network, you get economies of scale, and a lot of benefits that can help you go after that market.
Spirit said in an emailed statement to CNBC that its new travel options and increased flexibility reflect our ongoing efforts to provide greater value and comfort, and that it is well positioned for long-term success, and are confident that we will become an even stronger competitor upon emergence from the Chapter 11 process. With all of these challenges facing low-cost carriers, questions remain about whether the low-cost model is dead or if it's just evolving.
They are recognizing that they can appeal to a passenger that wants a little bit better experience, like extra leg room, maybe a little bit more service in flight. So they are recognizing that and trying to appeal to that and expand their customer base a little bit more. But in general, I don't think low-cost carrier industry is dead. It just needs to be resized for the current realities.